So, we just got official word from Infinity Ward that they will not be continuing development for DMZ. They released this statement essentially saying DMZ won't be getting new content, it will be staying alive on the old launcher with the original maps, but it won't be getting any kind of support with the release of MW3 or the new Warzone. However, on the brighter side, they also added that this might not be the end of the open world extraction genre for them, and that they will share updates when ready, and I don't believe they mean zombies. So whilst they're not continuing with DMZ, there's a chance of another game like this in future. And I kind of just wanted to go over the best and worst parts of DMZ in its lifetime, why I think it may have failed and succeeded in parts, but also why ultimately they are now focusing on zombies and Warzone instead of DMZ. So, going all the way back to when I first played DMZ, even I thought it was essentially Warzone with missions and an inverted gas circle. I just killed every player I saw. The missions felt kind of trivial, and I just brushed it off as another mode I'd play a couple of times and then go back to Warzone, unfortunately. But then we had this round where every moment felt like an action movie, dodging AI, players, near squad wipes. We exfilled in the last second, even lost a teammate, the whole round had constant action, and we didn't even complete our objective. It took quite a while to learn it wasn't just about winning or losing, but simply surviving or overcoming the odds with all the bumps along the way. The narrative is what got me hooked. And I think that brings me to my first point, is that everyone's first impressions of this mode is that it's just Warzone with missions. Everyone just shoots everyone on sight, there's no incentive not to shoot players, and I've already made a video how the game could have had a DayZ-like karma system to encourage friendly players and slightly penalize players who just bandit-like killing everyone. And even Tarkov has mechanics that incentivize you to work with other random players. Therefore, the new player experience for DMZ was pretty harsh, confusing, and unforgiving, especially if you gave the mode a go on your own. And this leads me on to my second issue of the solo experience. Extraction shooters usually lean heavily around players playing solo, and I assume a majority of people played solo when they first start playing. And if you get wiped by a 3-man team hunting players in your first couple of rounds of DMZ with no gear, you probably feel like quitting pretty quickly. They never focused on the solo aspect of this game, and if anything, it was just purely a worse experience in every imaginable way for solo players. And then, to make matters worse, they seem to massively prioritize the success of larger squads, which of course grew to be one of the larger issues in the game of platoons marauding around the entire map, wiping every player without a care for anything else. I never really wanted them to remove 6-man platoons, I just wanted them to be heavily penalized based on the size of their squad. If there was systems in place earlier that penalized players who only killed others and made larger groups, maybe the game would have been more enjoyable for the majority of players that played in smaller or solo squads. But in the end, I guess that didn't matter too much when you don't really care what happens round to round. DMZ's biggest issue in my eyes is that even though it's a more casual and arcade extraction game, there's barely any items or gear fear to care about keeping at all. One of my favourite memories of DMZ was when the weapons case was actually sought after. When if you extracted the weapons case, it unlocked new items and skins outside that match. Everyone was invested in getting the weapons case every round and had multiple strategies to try and extract it. We had some insane moments trying to get hold of it, and there was so much content revolved around it. You could argue that the weapons case is the most iconic mechanic in DMZ. Everyone wanted the value from the skins and progression. And then, after that initial weapons case, that was kind of it. There was no other universal item in the game that anyone cared about. Like sure, finding a GPU every so often was cool if you or a friend had the mission for it, but after that mission, I simply sold every supposed rare item I found in any match. We needed more items and gear that you actually cared about extracting or losing between rounds. Some sort of out-of-game economy or even crafting with rare items would have been pivotal for making items feel valuable and extracting with good loot satisfying. When we had to craft the vests from items at the start of Season 3 before the wallet, That's when it felt like DMZ finally had more reason to actually search for items. They eventually added the wallet system, which was basically the cash you extracted from that round, but honestly, it just made the items less valuable, because now I didn't even need to find items to craft vests, because I could just buy them every round. It's a harsh balance between making the game accessible and fun for any player to jump into, even just for a couple of hours, whilst also making sure that long-term players can't abuse the systems in place that are there to make it fun for newer players. Right now, there is a gap in the market for a casual, accessible extraction shooter. Other extraction shooters are way too hardcore. You need to learn every single nuance, map, and tactic to even get started, and even then, once you learn all those intricate mechanics, the cheaters and 1,000-hour players just destroy you at every turn. If there was a chart for how hardcore extraction shooters are, with DMZ at the bottom and Escape from Tarkov at the top, it looks like this. Every other PvP extraction game is still far too invested in making it complex and hard. You can snowball your experience by simply playing more than everyone else. And whilst you can kind of do the same in DMZ with insured weapons and multiple agents with previous gear, you can easily become as powerful within a single round as someone who has grinded the game for weeks. The game is completely revolved around a single play session, which may have worked in its favour in some ways. I love the fact that DMZ allows your team to recover from almost any scenario as long as one of your squad is still alive. Endless reviving and recovery. Every other extraction shooter is just, oh, you're dead, back to the lobby, no, you can't watch your teammate either, piss off and wait for them to extract or die. Right now, the extraction genre is top heavy, trying too hard to emulate Tarkov with its insanely steep learning curve and complexity. There is a huge gap right in the middle for a game to come along and fill, a perfect mix of accessibility, depth, and intensity. DMZ is amazing for being accessible, casual, and fun, but falls down when any kind of depth is involved. But that's not to say we haven't been spoiled with oceans of content. We have been given a constant flow of content more than any other extraction game I've seen. A new map every season, bosses, a new set or revamped missions each time. And that brings me to the real reason why I think they're supporting Modern Warfare Zombies and Warzone over DMZ. And that's because it's much easier to keep players engaged with a lot less work whilst also making more money. Warzone can get away with simply releasing some pre-made weapon builds, a few skins, and maybe a couple of limited time modes each season. And the players are incentivized to buy these overpowered guns and skins in order to keep up with its competitive nature. There is less expectations for new maps, AI bosses, loot, balancing missions and progressions to keep DMZ players happy every single time. And here's another thing, when a new player plays Warzone or Zombies, they know what to expect. In Warzone, you only fight solos as a solo. In Zombies, you won't even be bothered by players at all. The last thing you expected when playing DMZ for the first time is being beaten off by a 6-man team or a group of AI in your first game. And remember that DMZ was also a free portion of the game. Zombies is a paid portion of Modern Warfare 3 and potentially has more player retention than that of DMZ right now. They tried to monetize DMZ with the pay-to-win skins, with advantages like the free self-revives, kill streaks, and agent slots, but clearly that wasn't enough. At one point early on in MW2, it felt like Warzone was going to be intertwined or even replaced entirely by DMZ with how it was initially explained and then released with strange mechanics like strongholds and AI for loadouts. They didn't even have loadouts at launch, you couldn't buy them. And then I feel like the devs were hoping that DMZ would potentially become more popular than Warzone and ultimately make more money. But since that hasn't happened, they're focusing on what they know the majority of players will stick to playing and spending money on. Interestingly, the new Warzone even has a feature for extracting in the round, which is something they discussed Warzone 2 having that never materialized. So maybe the opposite has happened with DMZ becoming more of a side objective within Warzone. But ultimately, in the future, they're probably going to go with a more guaranteed monetization model for whatever extraction shooter they plan on building next. Hopefully, they've learned from everything that happened in DMZ regarding the new player experience, monetization, and depth. Either way, I've had an incredible time with DMZ. I've played almost every day and made videos of the amazing narrative that this mode regularly brings. In the future, I hope they can find the right balance between making a fun, casual extraction shooter with enough depth and intensity to keep new and veteran players happier for longer. What would have made you play DMZ more? What was DMZ missing for you? And what moments made DMZ worth it? Let me know down in the comments. And if you agree with anything I've said in this video, then leave it a like. Go on. And as for me in this channel, I'm going to play DMZ occasionally. I'm pretty much finished with zombies for now, as I'm sure some of you are happy about. And I will probably play a lot of the new Warzone mode when it's out. But honestly, I'm just waiting for that next extraction game that finds the perfect balance between casual and hardcore. I hope you've enjoyed my DMZ content as much as I have making it, and hopefully there's more of that type of content to come. Cheers for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. See you soon.